Right. Okay. Okay, we're on the bottom of Pei Hey Amud Beis in the Mishnah says normally a Bas Yisrael, if it gets married to a Kohen, so she's allowed to eat truma. But Erisin is not good enough to allow her to eat truma. That's a special din d'Rabbanan. Maybe they won't end up getting married. Maybe she'll end up giving some of the truma to her family members because she's still living in her own house. And if she is pregnant from a Kohen, then she doesn't get to eat truma until she actually gives birth to a child. And if she lost her husband and she's now, let's say her husband was a Kohen, and the brother-in-law who's a Yavam is a Kohen, so she's neither married to a Kohen, she doesn't have a child from a Kohen, that's why she's subject to Yibum, and she's not yet married to the Yavam because the Yavam hasn't performed Yibum yet, so that's also not good enough to eat a Kohen, so to eat Truma. And if she's a Bas Kohen, so once she gets married to a Yisrael, she's not allowed to eat Truma. So we say even if she only has Erisin with a Yisrael. So Erisin is kind of a Chumrah in both directions. It's considered to be good enough to be considered like a marriage. So if a Bas Kohen who has Erisin with the Yisrael can no longer eat Truma, but it's not good enough so that a Bas Yisrael who is betrothed to a Kohen who only has Erisin would not be allowed to eat Truma. So that's what the Mishnah says. It says Lamakma in both directions. Bas Yisrael Meresis LaKohen. It's only Erisin, Mubaris Mikohen, she's only pregnant, didn't give birth, Shemeres Yavam LaKohen, the Yibum hasn't taken place yet. And also in the opposite direction, Erisin already passes if she's a Bas Kohen, Bas Kohen who already has Erisin, the Yisrael, in all these cases, she's not allowed to eat Truma. What about a Bas Yisrael Meresis Levi? This is kind of a funny clause. So what is a Levi? A Levi is Ma'aser Rishon. So a Bas Yisrael who has Erisin with a Levi, or Melberis Mi Levi, if she's pregnant from a Levi who doesn't yet have a child, Shemeres Yavam Levi, between the husband one who died and husband two, a Levi who hasn't yet performed Yibum, Basi Levi, the Yisrael, Bas Levi who was allowed to eat Meiser in her father's house, but now she has Erisin with the Yisrael. In all these cases, she's no longer allowed to eat Meiser Rishon. It's a funny halacha. Isn't everybody allowed to eat Meiser Rishon? Lo socha b'Meiser. Bas Levi, so the Gemara is going to talk about it. Bas Levi, what if I have the only two families who are involved? There's no Zaros. The only two families who are involved are the family of Leviim and the family of Kohanim. This is an even stranger clause. Bas Levi Meresis LaKohen. He's a Bas Levi, and now she has Erisin with a Kohen. Mubaris Mi Kohen, or she has, she's pregnant from a Kohen. Shemeres Yavam LaKohen. V'chein Bas Kohen Levi, or Bas Kohen who has Erisin already with a Levi. So then, in such a case, she's precluded. Whatever this means, she's precluded. She's precluded lo socha, lo b'truma, below b'meiser. She can't eat truma. We understand. That's already the first part of the Mishnah because there's a tzad here that's not the Kohen. Either she's married to a Levi or she's not yet fully married to a Kohen if she's a Bas Levi. But why can't she eat Meiser? So the Gemara is going to explain all of these things. Okay, so the Gemara says, Utehei Zara. Let's say she's a Zara. Let's say that we treat her like she's a non-Kohen, a non-Kohenes. Zara miloach leva Meiser. Why wouldn't she be allowed? In the case where we talk about, for example, a Bas Levi who has Erisin with the Yisrael, and vice versa, why shouldn't she be allowed to eat Meiser, even if we treat her like a Yisrael? Anybody can eat Meiser Rishon. So I'm of Nachman, Amashmal, Amani Rabbi Meir. This is going according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir has an unusual shita when it comes to Meiser Rishon. He says that just like Truma is off limits to anyone who's not a Kohen, so too Meiser Rishon is off limits to anyone who's not a Kohen or a Levi. So Rabbi Meir, obviously a Kohen can eat Meiser Rishon. A Kohen is from Sheva Levi. A Kohen can eat Meiser Rishon. A Kohen gets the Trumas Meiser that's taken from the Meiser Rishon. A Kohen can certainly eat Meiser Rishon. But he means that if somebody is not a Kohen and not a Levi, then they're not allowed to eat Meiser Rishon. The Meiser Rishon also Lazarim. The Tanya, because the Brisa says Truma the Kohen, Meiser Rishon the Levi. That we know that there is a Rabbi Meir says that the Truma goes just like a Truma. Only goes, can be eaten by a Kohen and can't be eaten by a Zar, can't be eaten by a non-Kohen, not a Levi, not a Yisrael. So to Meiser Rishon also is not allowed to be eaten by anybody who's outside of Sheva Levi. That's what Rabbi Meir says. And we're going to see where he derives it from. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Mativa LaKohen. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that it's permitted to a Kohen. What do you mean permitted to a Kohen? Even Rabbi Meir would agree that a Kohen is allowed to eat Meiser Rishon. He's only saying that somebody who's not from Sheva Levi can't eat Meiser Rishon. So what's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah adding when he says Mativa LaKohen? Mativa Mechlal Di Kamanda Aser? Is that implying that there's an opinion, like for example, Rabbi Meir would say that a Kohen's not allowed to eat Meiser Rishon. Everybody agrees that a Kohen can eat Meiser Rishon. Ele'ema nos no apla Kohen. What it means is, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that when you give out the Meiser Rishon, you separate from your crops. You separate truma and you give the truma to a Kohen. So when you separate out Meiser Rishon, so you can eat. You don't have to only give Meiser Rishon to a Levi. You have the right to give Meiser Rishon to a Kohen as well. Okay. So my time at the Rabbi Meir. What's the explanation? What's the explanation for Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Shita? So the Gemara later on is going to give the explanation. Okay. So my time at the Rabbi Meir. What's the reasoning for Rabbi Meir, who says that Meiser Rishon is off limits to somebody who's outside of Shevet Levi? So Amavacha Brei de Rabba should be Mishmei the Gemara. There's a tradition going all the way back. Ravacha Brei de Rabba was in a much later generation than Rabbi Meir. There's a tradition going all the way back to Rabbi Meir. Mishmei is what Mishmei the Gemara means. It doesn't mean halacha and Lashon Sinai. It means that he had a shmur going all the way back to Rabbi Meir. Kiyas Ma'aseh b'nei Yisrael asher yarimu la'Hashem teruma. So we have a pasuk in Sefer Bamidbar that compares in the same pasuk. It talks about Ma'aser and Truma. Kiyas Ma'aseh b'nei Yisrael asher yarimu la'Hashem Truma. So there's a juxtaposition. There's a hekesh. So ma Truma so with the Zarim. So just like Truma is prohibited to non-Kohanim, to Zarim. So to Meiser Rishon is prohibited to anyone outside of Shevet Levi. Well, if you're going to make that comparison between the two things, so it should follow that if a non-Kohen eats a truma, so then the chayiv misa midei shemayim, and if they eat a peshogeg, they have to pay back a compensation to the Kohen plus 1/5. So af meiser. So if somebody who's a non-Shevet Levi person would eat meiser, it should follow according to Rabbi Meir that the person should be chayiv based on his hekesh in the pasuk should be chayiv misa b'dei shemayim b'meisid chayiv and love misa, and if they ate a peshogeg b'chomish, they should be obligated to pay an extra 5th. So Amakwas who say no, that's not true because we have a special pasuk that excludes the case of a non-Levi eating meiser rishon from misa and chomish. It says umesu bo, that only with respect to the eating of truma. Only with respect to Vishamus Mishmarti, Lo Yisrael Lavchetu Mesu Bo Ki Yichalaluhu, only with respect to eating Zar eating Truma would there be Misa, Mesu Bo Ki Yichalaluhu, V'Yasaf, and then the pasuk says V'Yasaf Chamishi So, a pasuk a few psukim later says V'Yasaf Ish Ki Yochal Kodesh Bishkaga. If it was eating Bishkaga, it's referring to Truma. V'Yasaf Chamishi So Alav, V'Yasaf Chamishi So Alav. So that indicates so Bo. The first pasuk indicates Mesu Bo. That only when it comes to the eating of a truma is there a chiv misa, a zare truma, below the meiser, and not with respect to the eating of meiser, and Allah, and only with respect to truma, does one add a 1/5 if one ate it for shogeg, if they're not a kohen, below a meiser, but not with respect to a non-Levi eating meiser. Rabbanan, however, otherwise there is a comparison, and meiser would in fact be prohibited to somebody outside of Shevet Levi, according to Rabbi Meir. Not a shita that we're so familiar with, because it's not generally assumed that way, but that's Rabbi Meir's shita, and that's what the Mishnah is going like. Rabbanan, the Chachamim say, no, that's not true. Ma truma, the juxtaposition teaches me something else. It teaches me that if I have crops, and I haven't taken away from the crops all of the trumas and all of the maestros, so then the crop is still considered to be tevel. So if somebody ate it, they would be eating tevel, and they'd be chayim misa. But a ma truma tovela is, just like if you didn't take the truma from the crops yet, it's considered tevel. So too, even if I took the truma, if I didn't take the meiser rishon, or I took the truma, I took the meiser rishon, and I didn't yet take the meiser ani, then it would still be considered to be tevel. Af meiser rishon nami tova. But the Tanya, like the Brisa says, Rabbi Yossi Omer, this is going like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi Omer, yochel lo yechayev el tevel shelo hua mimenu kol ikar. I might think that you're only going to be chayev for tevel that didn't have truma taken from it, but hua mimenu truma gedayla. For the Truma Gedola, which is about 1/50th, is taken off of the crops. The Meiser Rishon hasn't been taken off yet, or if the Meiser Rishon was taken off, the Meiser Sheni wasn't yet taken off of it, or in the 3rd or 6th year of the Shemitah cycle, instead of taking Meiser Sheni, you're supposed to take Meiser Ani. Apilo Meiser Ani is still, even if the only thing that's lacking is that you haven't removed the Meiser Ani, minayin that it's still considered to be Tevel. Talmud Lomar, this is a different pasuk. The pasuk says, Lo sucha lecha b'sharecha. It says you're not allowed to eat in the event that that you don't have all these things taken. Lo sucha lecha b'sharecha ma'aser dagan kavasi ushkavi yitzarecha, etc., etc., etc. Lahalan hu omer. It says that's taken in the 36th year, it says that the lady here, the Yasam, the Almana, the Ma'aser Sheni in the 3rd and 6th year are going to eat the Bisharecha V'Saveo. So I have a Xera Shava, the Bisharecha V'Afu Bisharecha, Masharecha Mulal, and Ma'aser Ani, just like Bisharecha. In the pasuk, it talks about Ma'aser. It's talking about Ma'aser in the 3rd year. That's what it says in the pasuk. The pasuk says, "Shana Mashna Shishis Shnas Ma'aser Hashkav Levi etc." Akshiarecha more time. So it says Lo Sukala Bisharecha. It means that you haven't taken off the problem. You have the Ma'aser embedded in the crops because you haven't yet taken off the Ma'aser from the crops. Akshiarecha more time. Keep the Ma'aser on. And it says lo sukal. So believe me, also, and if I only would have had a statement of Rabbi Yossi and not this other pasuk that gives me the hekesh, Tiras Maser and Isa Shiorima Lashem Tumah, I didn't have this other pasuk that we started with. Havamina, I would have thought that it's only a lo sasya, the love of Misa lo. One wouldn't be kind of Misa for eating the table. So Kamash Malan, so that's why we have the juxtaposition between Shuma and Ma'aser, just like if one didn't take off the Shuma, they'd be 5 weeks up. So too, if one didn't take off the Ma'aser, they'd be 5 weeks up. Another way of putting it is, Ma'aser Rishon doesn't have to be in the Tahara. Lishna Harina, no. Lishna Harina, another Lashon is, Ma'aser Rishon, the Tavio, the Rabbi Yossi Mafta. That the fact that Ma'aser Rishon has to be taken off in order for the crops not to be tackled. So that we learn from Rabbi Yossi. As a question. Another way of presenting the Gemara is, why do the Chachamim need the hekesh? Should we learn that from Rabbi Yossi? So we say, no. If I only want to find Rabbi Yossi, it's the same answer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know alive. I would do something negative prohibition. One wouldn't buy a piece of the crops is looking at the Ma'aser. Okay. But me, so low, Kamash Malan. That's why I need the other pasuk. But it's not the teaching me that the Ma'aser Rishon, according to the Chachamim, it's not the teaching that the Ma'aser Rishon is not limited to anybody who's not a lady. That's only how Rabbi Meir runs the pasuk. But my attempt to Rabbi Meir, explain that our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Meir. Hold on one second, please. That's much better. Okay, so my attempt to Rabbi Meir, Ema Sefer, but the Sefer of the Mishnah doesn't make sense according to Rabbi Meir. Because the Sefer of the Mishnah is not talking about somebody who's not a shaded lady. It talks about if I have a boss lady, somebody, a woman from the house of lady, from the house of Levi. Mereses the Kohen, she's the heiress of the Kohen. Bas Kohen, she's from the house of Kohanim, she's Mereses the Levi. No, so far, low between. We understand she can't eat Truma. She's either disqualified or not qualified yet, as the case may be. Although the Ma'aser, why can't she eat Ma'aser? She's not a non-lady. She's either treat her as a Bas Kohen, or treat her as a lady, or treat her as a Bas lady, but there's no part of the equation here. One family is Kohanim, one family is Leviim. There's no part of the equation that's not from Sheva lady, so why shouldn't she be allowed to eat from Ma'aser? Even according to Rabbi Meir, hello, the Ma'aser. After Ma'aser, there's no Zaros over here. She's either from the family of Kohanim or Leviim. But either way, according to Rabbi Meir, as he said at the beginning of the daf, he said there's no manga usher. Somebody prohibits Kohanim from eating Ma'aser. So Amar Sheish is not. The words "ein ocheles" don't mean what they say. My ein ocheles k'tanim. Now all that means is that if she only has innocent, and there's a part of the equation where she's not yet fully married, so either she's sort of dropped the level from being a Bas Kohen, or she hasn't yet fully married a Kohen. In an incentive to shush litro, she doesn't have the right to authorize with respect to her oaths. With respect to the man that she's marrying, that's a Ma'aser, and normally she would be allowed to appoint a shliach or to separate from the Ma'aser to take the Tumas Ma'aser. So she doesn't yet, since she's not fully married, she doesn't have the right to appoint a shliach to take the Tumas Ma'aser from the Ma'aser crops of her hubby, of her fiance, of the man that she's betrothed to. If she wouldn't be fully married, she can run the whole household, and she could just appoint the shliach to take Tumas Ma'aser. Yeah. Once she's fully married, she can run the finances. The Pasuk says, this is a pasuk in the Mikvah as well, says if you eat it wherever you and the household. So Beso, it's Beso, right? The house is the person's house, who's the Akeres Abayis, it's the wife.
The main on the Sua Basi saw, this teaches me that if she would be fully married, meaning that she went through the Suin already, and now she's living in her husband's house, not just betrothed, you don't know from betrothed anymore. Because the time of the time period, betrothal or marriage, it's about 2 seconds. It's the amount of time that somebody reaches the Tuba under the Chopra. You submit to be like a 12-month period between betrothal and marriage. This teaches me that when you do have full-fledged marriage, the best thing you put in already, even on the Sua Basi saw, she can give authorization to be towing Tumas Maisa from her husband's property, the husband's Maisa. I tell him it's just literal, but we don't level. So you're talking, this only restricted to the ability to authorize the Maisa to be taken, or even to eat it. So I'm just Tuma Chamuma Obelis Maisa Kala Koshikin. I don't need a pasuk to teach me that. I don't need a pasuk to teach me that she has the right to even eat the Maisa. But if the pasuk needs to teach me that she has the right to take tithes from the Maisa, to take too much Maisa from the Maisa. Actually, to eat the Maisa, of course she can eat the Maisa. If she's married to a Kohen, she's allowed to eat Tumas. If she's married to a lady, of course she can eat the Maisa. Maisa Kala, of course she can eat that. So he made on the Sua Bas Yisrael, Shenazenes and Shur, so literal. Teaches me that the Sua Bas who comes from the house of the Yisrael, she has the right to give the Rishus even to the Torah. So that's what it means. But up until the point she doesn't have that authorization because she's a boss lady who's marrying a Kohen and vice versa. Margaret Rabbana Amar, Margaret Rabbana gives a different explanation. What is it that teaches me? I'm a Lomar, she coking a mice at the base of bars. So when she's still in Arusa, this is true not only if she's in Arusa, this is true even if she's in a Sua. That we wouldn't give her Meiser when she goes down into the threshing floors. We'd be giving out all of the crops to the Kohanim, give out Puma to the Kohanim, we give out Meiser to the Levium. So she's, let's say, the wife of a lady, or a boss lady who's marrying a Kohen. She doesn't get Meiser the base of money. She can't give it out to her. So according to the opinion that says that when it comes to Truma, the reason why we don't allow an Arusa to eat Truma, when let's say I have a Bas Yisrael who is betrothed to a Kohen, technically speaking, she's king and pastor, she's allowed to eat Truma already, but we don't allow her to eat Truma. Why is that? Because we're going to get to this now. That's different. So according to the opinion that says, this is the Gemara later on in the Kufam and Aleph in the Parakos, that the reason why we don't distribute Truma to a woman in the threshing floors is because we're worried that she's going to be alone with one of the men who's working in the threshing floor, that is a yichud. So then I understand why we don't allow this distribution to take place. So but according to the opinion that the reason why we don't allow it is because we're worried that the husband is going to divorce her, and she's going to be a Zara, and not everybody is going to know, and therefore Truma is going to be given out to a woman who used to be married to a Kohen, but she's no longer married to a Kohen. So Grusha, so let's read normally we don't read the parentheses, but here it makes sense to read the parentheses. So Grusha Bas Levi, Miolo Achla B'Maiser, she's a Grusha, that the last clause of our Mishnah was talking about a Bas lady who's betrothed to a Kohen. So why shouldn't I give out to her in the threshing floor some Meiser, even if she gets divorced? Okay. So she's no longer considered to be in the house of a Kohen. Well, we're also allowed to eat Meiser, but she's in the house of a lady. She can still eat Meiser. The time out. So according to that Tashi, you can ask a different Tashi, because it says also over there in the same paragraph later on in that Kufa Amanama that the main case where we don't give out the Truma is we don't give out the threshing floors is not only the case of Meiser, that's what we learned in our mission. The case here is that I don't distribute Truma in the threshing floors. It says I don't distribute Truma to any woman. It sounds like even if the woman is a Bas Kohen, right, and she's married to a Kohen, I don't distribute Truma to her in the threshing floor. Sometimes I can ask the same question there. But I make Rusha Bas Kohen, Balakla B'Truma, you can ask the question again over there. Why not give out to a woman who's from a family of Kohanim who's married to a Kohen? Why not give her Truma? You don't have to be worried. According to that reason, she's going to get divorced. And if she gets divorced, it's really Truma. And the Gezerah, that was the Gezerah, then maybe you might end up with Truma. So a woman who's a Basi so is married to a Kohen, she's going to get divorced, and she certainly would not be allowed to do that. So therefore, the same thing is true with respect to the Bas lady over here. Even though it's true, she's a Bas lady who is betrothed to a Kohen, she's married to a Kohen. I'm not going to distribute to my sister because I might have the case of a Bas so is married to a lady. She's not, according to Rabbi Meir, she's only allowed to receive Meiser while she's still married to a lady, and maybe she'll still won't know when she gets divorced. And they'll still give her Meiser at the threshing floor. So talking my Miriam Meresis. So the truth is that this din, you shouldn't give it to her because why maybe she'll get divorced. That shouldn't only be a restriction when she's betrothed to the lady of the Kohen, as the case may be, even if she was fully married. So she said, yeah, you're right. The last part of our Mishnah about not giving, which she really connotes, though the words don't sound that way, she really connotes she's not giving her Meiser expression for, is talking about even if she'd be a Nesua. But being a Nesua, Nami, I need the toleration of us. It's the first case of the Mishnah when, let's say, a Bas Yisrael who is betrothed to a Kohen is not allowed to do Truma despite the fact that she's betrothed to a Kohen, and not only because she's an Usa, if she be fully married, she would be allowed to do Truma. The Tananami Seifa arrested, so therefore the Seifa also talks about a case of arrest, but in the last part of the club, the last portion of the issue would apply to the not a bottom. And Rabbi Sword, what? Truma the fighting Ma'aser Rishon a lady. Let's go back. So Truma goes to a Kohen, and Ma'aser Rishon goes to a lady. Rabbi Akiva. That's kind of pretty standard. Truma goes, so this is not talking about that it's off. Like Rabbi Meir said, the Ma'aser Rishon is off limits to a Zar. That's not what this is saying. It's just saying when you're distributing your tithes, you should give the Truma to the Kohen. The Ma'aser Rishon, everyone knows that. Rabbi Akiva says that, which everybody knows. Comes along Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, whom we quoted Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah at the beginning of the Amud as saying, no, Ma'aser Rishon can go to a Kohen. So that's what he said here too. When you're distributing, the Ma'aser Rishon, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you distribute it straight to the Kohen. Omer, turn the page. Omer, La Kohen. He says, La Kohen. What do you mean, La Kohen? You give Ma'aser Rishon, something in the Torah say, you give Ma'aser to a lady. So La Kohen below a lady. You mean that you only give Ma'aser, just like you only give too much of a Kohen, no, Ma'aser Rishon to a Kohen. Never heard of such a thing. I mean, too much Ma'aser, separated from the Ma'aser Rishon only goes to a Kohen. Oh, I said Ma'aser Rishon only goes to a Kohen. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah means an apple. When you're distributing the Ma'aser Rishon, you can distribute it to a lady, of course. You can also distribute it to a Kohen. So my time, so what are the various reasons of these different shittas? My time is very straightforward. Rabbi is just reading the psukim. He says that Sid El will begin to the air. You should speak to the Levium. This is also in the same parsha. You should speak to the Levium, and you say, that the Levium are going to get the mouse here. The Levium comes to the first, talking about the Levium. So how does Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah tie Shach? The pasuk says very clearly that you give the mouse only to Levium. We got to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, why, the Kohen's not a lady? A Kohen's not, I'm not from Seder Levi. Like, if you're taking away my Seder stacks, I'm also from Seder Levi. A Kohen is also from Seder Levi. He got to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. I'm Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, that there were 24 places where the Kohanim are also referred to as Leviim. One of the places is Kohanim are Leviim, B'nai Tzadok. It's referring to the B'nai Tzadok. Tzadok was a Kohen, and yet it refers to him as not only Kohanim, but rather also Leviim. Here too it says, hey, you give to a lady, but Kohen is also a lady, so you can also give to a Kohen. Rabbi Akiva says, no, here a lady is only ladies. You can't say that. Because the pasuk goes on to say that they can eat it anywhere. Only a lady can eat things anywhere. I mean, people want to have a picnic. What's the most natural location you would pick? Cemeteries. It's quiet, right? Those around, those are quiet in the cemetery. So you can eat anywhere. That would presumably include, sitting down having a picnic in the cemetery. Somebody who can eat the food, eat the rice, even in the cemetery. That's a Kohen, so you're not going to go for the basic clothes. But a Kohen needs some basic clothes. A Kohen is not allowed to go inside the cemetery, so therefore, it's obviously only referred to Leviim and not to Kohen. However, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah would say, no, but it says, because in the cemetery, it means, you don't have to eat it within a like Ma'aser Rish, Ma'aser Sheni, you have to eat inside of the walls of Yerushalayim. But here, it doesn't have to be within the walls of Yerushalayim. It doesn't require the wall. You can eat it anywhere that you want. Getting back to Yaakov's point, you can eat it even if you're coming. Even if you're coming, you'd be allowed to eat it. That's what the Chol means. But now that it has to be something that the person has to eat in a cemetery, so it refers to a Kohen. The Kohen would be allowed to eat it anywhere, meaning even outside of the walls of Yerushalayim, even outside of the walled city, and the Kohen would be allowed to eat it even to myself. Okay? Inside. There was an inside. What's an inside? It's a garden. It's a garden. It's a woman who owns a garden. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah used to take Hamaisos. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Kohen. Isaiah would take it, he held the Maisus can be given even to a Kohen. Maisus was a Kohen, So he would take the Hamaisus, he would take Maisus Rishamina. So also Rabbi Akiva said this woman's garden had two openings. One opening was outside, was opened up to the freeway. So the Muslim Messiah would just enter into that opening and take the Maisus. The other opening opened on the other side, opened up into a cemetery. So Rabbi Akiva, how did the Pesach make over? He closed up one of the openings, so it was only the opening from the cemetery. So he couldn't get into the garden anymore unless he stepped into the cemetery. So it became off limits. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a little good. He said, Akiva v'tamimo. He carries his leather pouch, but he puts his money, he's a shepherd. The shepherds would carry around a leather pouches. So he said, yeah, Akiva gets his leather pouch. But I'm supposed to live. Akiva knows whatever he wants. Now he could put his bread in his pouch. Now, and how am I supposed to live if I don't have access to the Ma'aser Rishon from the store? Because he closed up the entrance from the way, and I can't get in anymore from the cemetery. So he was like, okay. Hey, Rabbi, Rabbi Kiva, she does it. He held that Rabbi Elazar wasn't entitled to collect the Ma'aser Rishon from the woman. She had to give it to a lady. That's all. So hey, Rabbi, comes to the Ma'aser. So this is the second of my focus. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Kiva arguing normal times. Even before there was some sort of a penalty, as we'll see, that was imposed upon a Levim during by a shady not to give the Ma'aser Rishon to them anymore. Rabbi Elazar and the Chaim said, what's the penalty? If you give the Ma'aser Rishon to a Kohen, give it to a lady. But then there's a second discussion about what kind of a penalty, whether there was a penalty to receive the Kohen Levim because they didn't come up when they said that they get called for Bnei Yisrael to make Aliyah. Beginning the second base of English period, so a bunch of people decided to stay in Chicago. They didn't make Aliyah. So apparently that included all the Levim. Levim stayed in Chicago and they didn't make Aliyah. You have to impose a penalty by them. So even if they came to China completely, but they didn't make that come with the initial Aliyah. So Meba comes from the price, why would they penalize when it comes to Ma'aser? They made a penalty not to give Ma'aser to Levim anymore, but to Aliyah. Bnei Yisrael, beginning of the second bias. Okay, so please, on the other side of Sabi. On the other side, on the other side of Sabi, I disagreed about the reason. So kind of, one of them said, one of them said that they were penalized, and that's what we said, because they didn't go up 10 days of mess. The other said, they were penalized because one helped the God. They one helped the she's super glad on how to make awesome. Just there. The Kohen went out allowed to strike, not allowed to like that's how they keep Ma'aser Rishon on the time. So this way, just get the Ma'aser Rishon to the bottom, not to the end, so the bottom like something deep. So there's not on the bottom, so low, so other says, go on. And then they I understand. That's a good reason to propose it by something. I just said he wanted to help us. You're going to keep by someone because he wanted to help out the money. That doesn't sound very nice. Yeah, we're going to have to I said, I didn't do anything wrong talking to these. I don't know if she's going to go out and lie and get to us on. You should go out and that's still a thing. First, go out and just going to punch some people with nothing wrong. Wait, that's not reasonable to people. It's not a reasonable thing. Now, a Kuliyama, everybody in the debate for the past, so I was being penalized, but because, so all of the cancer, they doesn't decide to stay in Chicago. How can we be called? Two opinions are arguing about the following. One opinion says, go to the first opinion says that this wasn't once we're imposing the pass on him, so that doesn't mean that you give the Ma'aser Rishon to anybody, you give the Ma'aser Rishon to the poor people. Marsav, or in the other opinion, who says, well, we want the Kohanim to have what's in their tummy, since once we're penalizing him anyway, so give the Ma'aser Rishon to the Kohanim. Marsav Kohanim make the Ma'aser Rishon because Kohanim, if they're a rich Kohen, even if they're a rich Kohen, in some ways it's kind of poor because they can't eat Tumah, so it's as if they're poor, so definitely even a rich Kohen, if you give the Ma'aser Rishon during the period of time that they're tummy, they're considered to be like an other. And therefore, that's why, you should do the Ma'aser Rishon to the Kohanim. Okay? So Islam, once again, I guess we're going to read the correct something about this. Usually skip parentheses, but it seems in this particular block that the parentheses make sense. So, because you look at Rashi seems to work with what's in the parentheses. So according to the opinion that says that even when the class was supposed to be, the Meister Rishon was given to the body. It's given to the Aniyim. Shalapi Ahadi of the Kobi. But the keeper was after the days of Ezra, right? But he came after Ezra. He doesn't appear anywhere in Tanakh. Because he came after Ezra in the Tanakh. So then we understand that even after the class was supposed, Rabbi Akiva still felt that it was improper for Rabbi Elazar Kazarias according to claim the Meister Rishon. He wasn't an Ani. Elamon, Dama, Kohan, but according to the opinion that once the class was supposed, everybody would be the Meister Rishon should be on the bottom. So my husband is going to be public. So why then did he restrict the access of Rabbi Elazar Kazarias to the woman's garden that you can collect the Meister Rishon from? So Achikamali said, well, because I don't think that you're collecting the Meister Rishon for the right reason. I don't think your kavod is according to the halacha. Very interesting. Because it's because outside Islam. If you're collecting Meister Rishon because you're only entitled after the base of Esther and the family base, but that's fine. But I don't think that's the real reason. I think you think that you'd be entitled to the even before the base of Esther and the family, based on the way you actually took it. Because it's so much you think that you have a right to it based on that it's your rightful portion according to the Torah. Based on so then you're not entitled to it. So that's why he closed up the end. It's very interesting. You have to have the right kavod. You know, after those speak of the Me'ez, so how do we know that the kingdom did not rise up to Eretz Yisrael during the days of Esther? It's sin because it says this is a pasuk in Ezra. It's a pasuk in Ezra. It says, "Rakabsein el hanar," and gather everybody next to the river. Haba el ihu, that Ahava, excuse me. V'nachana sham yamim shlosha. We're going to stay there for 3 days. So Avina ba'am and I looked around and I saw who was there. But I did not find any of the Bnei Levi. I didn't find anything there. He's saying, I think Ezra is saying, I didn't find anything. So I'm going to the field while you might be originally, the official officers of the court were only appointed to Levim. It's considered to be an important status, and therefore it was given to Levim who are on a high level of stature. Shenamar, as it says, this is the pasuk in Tivya Yom base. The Shotim on Levim with Mechem. The Shotim were from the Levim. So they were placed in front of they were placed in charge of the courts of the Batidin. Good. Since this is also good that they were given an important position. Actually, now that they penalize the men, so when we appoint the police officers, it's only from non-shaded labor. We only appoint them from the non-Levim. They don't even show them in Israel, only from Israel, because it says, it says, Shokim Marabim Groshikan. The Shokim Marabim, meaning that they were from the majority of the population, Rashi says. The majority of the population were not shaken ladies. They were put in the pasuk. The problem is, this pasuk doesn't actually exist. But it does exist in the Gemara, so that became no process. So now we have the nine mission, next mission. Okay. Pasuk starts with this is poet. If I have a pasuk, so good, but she's married to a poet. Once she's married, wonderful, love marriage, she became so covered too much, she can't keep the tumor. Once they're actually fully married. She has a son, she has a child. From the Kohen, she needs to the child. Great. This is the lady. But now she decides my husband is her husband. So she has to marry another husband. She marries a lady. The lady is married, but that's too much. She's no longer used to it. She has to start with the Kohen. It's not luck because now she's married to the lady. Lady to look to Meiser. This is lady to look to Meiser. She can eat Meiser. But only if Meiser is close to it. If the lady dies, she had a child with the lady, okay, so allowing her to pay, so Toko, but so now she's still associated with the lady, based on having a child with it, so she don't need the license, she's still getting to it. So now she decides to marry a third husband. What about the bottle of Kabbanis? I don't know, somehow she gets out of the bottle of Kabbanis. This is the song, now she gets married to the song. Oh, Toko, hold the chuppah, hold the nice. So now she's not allowed to do the whole nice. So now they start on 2 and a 40 man, but I still, hey, it's the law, and I know, okay? And the Saul died, and actually has a child with the Saul, so she's still considered invalid to the man. I said, goes on, love the chumma, they love the nicest. She can't eat the chumma, she can't eat the nicest. Hey, but the Saul, what? The child, the Saul dies, and actually supposed to get the lady. She can't eat the double on space, and they did have a Saul, there's no box, something. Now the children all died, a father son. Now the child and the lady dies based on the lady, so now she's associated with the Kohen again because she got a child from the Kohen. Tells us the Shuma based on the Kohen. Now the child from the Kohen dies. What was she originally? She originally first words of Mishnah about the child, and then she's not entitled to the words of the other nice. If I had only married to a boy, right? So the children actually come on because she has children from the other husband. Because she children who was her current husband. That's mine and men. And she has a child from latest husband who was the God. She has a child from Christ and she has children. So come to them. Next but I'm going and that child dies from the she can't even work but she did the nice because she has a child from late. Next but I'm again, but that child from late dies from the nice nice. Next but I'm now she's still attached to the soul, but she has a child from the soul. But if the child from the soul dies, she goes back to one subject. What is she? What are the first 2 words on the page? Passed away. Next but I'm so that's what you see. And then she go back and she can do it again. As it says, as remember, it says, Shabbat is a big back. Welcome out there to about it. Once again, about to Cuba, not because she's married to a Kohen, but because she's back to Cuba, husband, she goes back to her father's house, she apartment, she goes back to her.
Okay.